Welcome back to your first ever Rust project. In this project, you're going to build your first Rust to-do application. So anybody can come and they can add their to-do list. So click on this add and it will be added. You can add as many to-do lists as you want. So I want to add this. Let's add a couple of more quickly. And I will go with this one, add, and let's call hey and call gym live. So I have added these many to-do lists. If the task is completed, you can mark it complete, and it will change the state in our backend server as well. You can mark it complete. If you want to delete any to-do list, you can simply click on delete, it will delete. Or if you want to add more, you can click here and you can add more. If you want to do the editing in the to-do list, you can do that. You can click on this edit, and here you have to simply retype the tasks which you want to assign. So I'll say blockchain developer and click on this update, and it's going to update our to-do list, and you can simply click on mark. If you want to do the filtration and find a specific to-do list, you can simply search for it, type gym, and it's going to filter out the entire data. You can simply go back to the normal, all the list. So every single thing is working absolutely fine, and this is one of the projects which you have to include if you really want to build a strong portfolio. If you do the responsive check of this application, it's 100% responsive for all the different screen sizes. So this is how it's going to look on the very small size. If you go back to little bigger, this is how it's going to look. If you go to a little bigger, this is how it's going to look. It's pretty good. In this project, you will learn that how you can build a backend server using Rust programming language. It will teach you every single thing about the data structure. Now we can start coding our first ever full stack Rust project. So this is going to be our ultimate resource where we're going to find out everything about the installation. And if you have any doubt about the contract we're going to write for our backend, you can simply come here and you can find every single thing about the data type, function, comment, flow, installation. That's all given here. So first thing we have to do is we have to install Rust in our system. I already have Rust in my system, so I don't need to do that. But in case if you don't have Rust, I'll show you how you can do that as well. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder called Rust to do. That's the name I'm going to give to my project. Make sure to open this project in your VS Code. So click on this, click on open, come back to the desktop, and here I have the project, the folder which I have created. Click on open. So this folder is open in our VS Codes. Now I'm going to simply open up my terminal. If you don't know how to open, you can do in two ways. You can press command or control and backtick, it's going to open, or you can simply open with here as well. So click on this and click on this new terminal, it's going to open that as well. So we got our terminal. Now we have to clone the starter file. So before I clone the starter file, let me show you that I have Rust installed in my system. So you can come back to the browser and you can see here you will find every single thing which you have to know about the Rust programming language. So come back to the installation section. Here you will find that how you have to install Rust if you don't have, and here you will find the instruction for installing Rust in your system. If you have Mac OS or Linux, you can simply run this command and you will install the Rust in your system. And if you have a window, you can simply click here and you can check their requirement that what are the things you need to fulfill to install Rust in your system if you have Windows system. But I don't have Windows, so I'm going to use this Mac installation. So make sure to check that. Now first thing I have to do, I have to check my Rust version which I'm using. So if you come back here, this is the command you have to type. You can simply type or you can simply copy. If I come back and paste the command and hit enter, you will see that I'm using this particular version of Rust. But I'm going to uninstall and I'm going to reinstall Rust to show you that if you don't have, how you have to do it. So if I come back here, you will see here I have the command to uninstall Rust. So if I want to update to the latest version, I can simply run this particular command and it will update to the latest version. But I want to uninstall, so simply take this one, Rust setup, uninstall, copy that, come back here and hit enter, and it's going to ask you that whether you want to uninstall. Are you sure about it? I'll say yes. So I'll say why and hit enter, and it's going to simply remove the entire Rust programming language, the setups from my system. So if I want to check the Rust version, you will see that I don't have that. So this is the command I have to run to check the Rust version. So if I hit enter, you will see this particular command not exist in our program because we have uninstalled Rust. Now it's time to reinstall our Rust. So I'm going to simply clear my terminal. I'll come back here and I have to simply copy this entire piece of code. So I'll simply come back here, and here I have the instruction for installation for Linux or OS. If you have Windows, you can simply click here and you can check the requirement which you have to fulfill to install Rust. It's a very simple process. So we can simply come back here. I'm going to simply grab this entire command, copy that one, come back and paste here. This is the entire command I have, and I have to hit enter, and it's going to simply execute the command, and I'm going to install the Rust. So you can see here we are downloading the installer. So this process will take a little, and here it will ask you for your preference. So you want to install the default one, you can press 1. If you want to do the customization, you can press 2, or if you want to cancel, you can simply press 3. But I want to install the default one, and I would suggest you to do that. So press 1 and hit enter, and here the installation process got started. And the best part of this Rust installation, it's come with bunch of packages. It will also give you this cargo, which help you to initialize and design the architecture and the folder and file structure of our Rust project. So this process takes a little bit time. Just wait. Once the installation will complete, then we're going to simply start using Rust and create our project. So this process takes a little bit time. It's quite heavy. We have a lot of installation need to be done. So like you can see 6 MB, 15, 22, 50. So there is a lot of packages are dependent on one another. So this process might take a little bit time depending on your internet speed. You can see I got these packages: cargo, supply, Rust doc, and here it's still going on. There is a lot of things we have, and finally we have installed the entire Rust in our system. So everything looks pretty good, and here you will got this particular message: Rust is installed now. Great. I'm going to simply close this one, because when you will do the installation of Rust for the very first time, the package is installed but it's not initialized in the project. So you have to close your VS and you have to open the folder one more time. So now you are ready to use the Rust. So I'm going to select the folder. I'll click here, and now I can simply check for the command. So I'll simply go back, click here. I can go back to my previous commands to check the version, and you can see I'm using this particular Rust version. So if I want to check the cargo, which we're going to use for running our server, so I'll say cargo, and you will see we'll get bunch of this command, and these are the commands which are going to help us a lot when we're going to run our backend server. You have a couple of build command, check, clean, dog. That's all you will find. If you want to uninstall, you can simply uninstall this separately. And I want to check the cargo version which I'm using, so all you have to do is to simply check here. Here we have the command -v, not a single dash. Okay, you have 2 dash. So simply type cargo -version version. So this particular version we are using, which is the latest one. So this is how you can install Rust in your system. I hope the Rust is running fine in your system. We are done with the requirement. Now we have to get our startup file, which I already provided to all of you guys. So simply clear our terminal. We got that project set up. We got our installation done. Now we have to get our startup file. So to get the startup file, come back here, go back to the blockchain coder, and here you will find all the resources which you need to develop the project. We have built a lot of project in our channel. That's all you're going to find out here. So simply come back here. Here you will find this source code section, and here you will find all the project we have built. I hope you guys have built at least 5 of them. If not, then make sure to build, because these projects are industry ready, and it will help you to and teach you that how you can build a real world project. And here you will find all the source code and the startup file of this particular project, or you can simply do the filtration from here as well. Click on this recent project, and here you have. You can simply do the filtration by the name. So click on this. You will come here. Now click on this get startup file, and here you will have the complete startup file of this particular project. I have given all the instruction, all the requirement of this project. That's all is given here. So you can simply check that. But I'm interested in this startup file. So I'm simply select this URL, or you can simply download it from here. You can copy this from here as well. There is no problem. Or you can get this one. Now you can come back to the VS Code, and all we have to do is to simply type this git clone, paste the URL, and you have to give this dot, because we want to unzip the folder and we want to have the entire file in this particular folder. We don't want to create a separate folder inside this folder. Okay, so make sure to give this dot and hit enter. Once you do that, it will going to clone the repository. You can see we got the entire folder and file structure which we have defined here in our project. That's all we got back here in the project. Now I'm going to simply close this down, and now let me give you a quick walkthrough that what exactly we have here in our folder and file structure. So I'm going to simply delete this one because I don't need this. And here we have the component. In that you will have this SVG. We are using this particular icon which is given to you, and here we have this particular component for checkbox. So remember, we have a check means confirm, and uncheck means this task is not completed. So this is the component we have. I'm going to simply close this one, and if you come back to the pages, we have this app setup. You don't need to do anything in here. If you come back to the index, here we're going to write all the logic all the functionality for backend interaction, front end interaction. That's all we're going to build here because it's going to be a single page application. Close this one. Now if we come back to the public, we have this only image, the blockchain coder. You can put your logo. Now we have this Rust, and that we're going to write the code for our backend using Rust. So if you go to this src, inside that we have this main.rust. So in this we're going to write the entire code of our backend program in Rust, and the dependency we are using, if you come back to the package.json file, so in Rust we use this as a package.json file. So you can see we are using different packages. This one is the web active. We have this particular package called cross. This will allow us to interact with the different round, so we'll not able to have that particular error, cross origin error. So this is the one which we are using, and we have this other packages, one for date, one for sanitization, means we want to take the actual data. We don't want any kind of script in our backend, so that kind of things we have here. So we are using all of these packages, very light application. So this is what we have inside the Rust, and this particular two folder will be generated by automatically by Rust. So you will have this one. Okay, for time being you will have this two folder which will be automatically generated. Now close this one. If you come back to the style file, here you will find all the CSS which we have already written, so we don't need to write the CSS. All we have to do is to write the HTML, and we have to apply this CSS and focus on the functionality main. That's all we have here. Now this is the git ignore. You can simply keep it as it is because these are the things we don't want to push to our GitHub. You can keep as many files excluded from pushing on GitHub, but these are the default one which I have highlighted here. If you come back to the Next.js config file, so this is the default setup I have. If you come back to the package.json file, so in the front end we are using all of these packages. Actually we don't need this web3 model, so I'm going to simply remove this one. And actually we don't need this ether package as well, but we need all of these packages. We need the React icons, React Next.js, we need this date fans. This will allow us to convert the date into a readable format, and we have access for making an API request to our backend in Rust. And you can come back to the readme file, and here I have given a couple of instructions. That's all you will find here. So this is how our folder and file structure is going to look like. Now I want you to install one extension. You can see I have this Rust analyzer, and this is a very helpful tool which will allow you to give you a proper direction, give you a couple of highlights when you will going to write the code. So make sure to install this one, and it's going to tell you that what kind of bugs are happening in your Rust code, and it's going to also generate this kind of files. So make sure to come back here in the extension, and all you have to type Rust analyzer analyzer. You will find bunch of tools, but the one I would encourage you to install is this one. So click on this very first one. I have already installed this particular version. Make sure to install that, and down below you will find all the details about this extension, that are how it's going to help you writing the code and doing the setups. That's all you will find. So make sure to install this, and once you install, make sure to restart your project, close the VS Code and open one more time. Then the extension will be activated, and you will have the Rust analyzer down below. So this is the one extension I want you to install. And if I come back to the installation extension section, I have a bunch of extensions already installed. So I'm going to clear this one. You will see I have a bunch of extensions which I have already installed. The one I want you to install is this one, because GitHub Copilot is currently available in the paid version, but this one is also a very good one which will also give you highlights. So when I'm going to type the code, it's automatically going to give me a couple of snippet and highlights. So this one is really helpful. So make sure to install this one as well. So simply come here, install. You can able to see the docs that how it's going to help. So when you're going to write a couple of code, it's automatically going to give you this suggestion. So check here. You can install this as well, but it's not that mandatory, but you can install it. Will help you to faster your development. So we're done with that, and I'm going to simply close this one. So this is the few requirement you need to have to start coding this project. Now let's do the installation of the project. So I'll open this one. I'm going to simply clear my terminal, and let's install all of packages. So I'm already into this particular directory, and I'm going to install all of these packages. So simply type npmi, and it's going to install all of the libraries which we are using right up here. So the installation is quite fast. I'm going to simply clear my terminal, and We have done the installation. Now we have to just check this out. So we'll type npm run dev, and here our application got started on localhost 3000, and this is the front end, because when we're going to run our Rust backend, it's going to have a different endpoint, different URL. So if I come back here in the project, if I click on this localhost 3000, you can see it's working fine. So it looks good. So all the setups are done. I hope you guys are on the same stage where I am right now. Now we can start coding our Rust backend. So I'm going to simply close all of this. Close this one, come back here, go back to the SRC, click here, and now we can start working on that. So let's start coding our Rust program. So this is where we are. Now I'm going to simply slide it down on the left hand side, so we will have a good space so you guys can able to see the entire code. So first thing, what we have to do is we have to import all the libraries we're going to use in our project, which we have already highlighted in our package.json file, the cargo one. So let's import that. So first is going to be the Actix-web, and in that we're going to take couple of things. So first thing is going to be the web, second one is going to be the app, then we're going to have this HTTP server, then we'll have this responder, and we'll have this HTTP respond. So this is the first package we have imported, and this is how you can import in Rust. This is how you can import modules, different functionality. So what I'm telling here in my Rust code, that I want to use this particular package. Inside that particular package, we have these modules. We have web, we have app, we have HTTP server, we have responder, we have HTTP responder. So we want to use all of this functionality, which is a different, but it's available in this particular package. So this is how you can import. It's very simple. The way we import use state, use hook from React is exactly the same. Let's import the next package. This one is called active cross, because we have to handle the cross origin error. It's coming from the cross. Then we have to import this state, and in that we need to take this deserialization, because we don't want to have any script in our backend server. So let's import that. Then we have to import our ID. So this is the library which we're going to use for generating the ID for every single to-do list. So let's import that. Then we have to import the async, mutex. Then we have to import the cron, and in that we're going to take this UTC, and we're going to take this date time, because every single to do has a specific time that when we have created that. So we're going to use this library for generating the date and time. So it's very simple, very simple. If it sounds complicated, if it seems complicated, just code along with me. It's not important that you should understand every single thing in one go. Just build the project and try to analyze every single package. I'm going to explain every single package, every single logic, but after that I want you to focus and give some time. Go to repository and check that what are the modules are available, how we have built that particular functionality, what are the data we are passing. So if it sounds complicated, if it's getting confusing, just code along with me. Your goal should be build your first Rust project. Once you complete that, after that you start analyzing the code. That's how you learn. Okay, when you will complete the project, after that you have to give some time to analyze that what better you can perform, what optimization you can do, and how we have built the logic. So this should be your approach. Okay, now we can come back here and let's start coding the functions. So what we can do is we're going to take this, let's take this drive, and then we're going to take a couple of things. We'll take this serialization, decentralization, and we'll take this clone. It's a simple method we are using because we want to utilize these tools. So that's why we are highlighting here. And now we have to define our struct. So in Solidity, we have a struct where we can define multiple data which we want to take. So for example, I'm creating an NFT. So NFT can have multiple data like user, ID, hash, image. So it's just like the same. We have to take this struct. So to define a struct, all we have to do is to use the struct keyword, and we can call whatever we want to our struct, and in that we can define that what we want and what data type we want. So first thing is going to be the ID, and we're going to use this library. Second one is going to be the title, which is going to be the string where we're going to keep the message of the user, and third one is going to be the complete, which is going to be a boolean that will keep the status whether the to do is completed or not. And we have to also use the created at, in that we're going to simply define the date and time when this particular to do is created. So let's use this library called date. In that time, in that we can simply pass this UTC. and this will give you the date in a proper format, which we can simply convert it and display in our readable format. Okay, so this is the first to do item we have. You can see the moment you will start using these packages, it will automatically remove this yellow line. This yellow line means that you are not utilizing those packages, and this happening because we have used that extension. So it's a good tool. So that's our first struct. Now we can come back here and we have to define couple of more things. So before we do that, let's replace this one and type UTC and date and time. I got this auto import, so that's why it was 3 items, but I need only those 2. I want to keep it my program light, not that heavy. So that's what we got it, and this looks good. Now we can simply come back here and let's take the another one, and in that we need to take this deserialization. Inside that we have to define our struct. So we'll take this create to do item, and in that we can take this title is going to be a string, and then we'll have this boolean. And the reason why I have taken this, because this is what we're going to update when the user will create their first to do. So we have a global scope, then we have the sub secondary scope, which we're going to call it during the function call. So we got this one. Now we can come back here and let's take the third one. We'll call the same method because we want to check the data. So we can use this library. Now we can simply come back here. Let's take this struct and we can define this update to do item. So this is for the update. In that we can define title. That's what we're going to take it, and we want to keep it as an option. Inside that we're going to simply pass the string, because our text which will come when the user will update is going to be a string type. Then we have to take this complete status, and this is also going to be a boolean, same. So this one is for update. We got it. Now we can come back here. Let's take a struct, and in that we have to define our app state. So what is the current state of our app, and that's what we have to create the reference. So let's call this app state. Inside that we have to call this to do, and we'll use this mutex, which is the library which we are using, and in that we have this particular method, and that's what we have to create the reference to do item. That's the only thing you have to keep in mind. Again, this is the advanced concept, but I don't want to go into the detail that how we are building this relation. I just want to keep it simple, so just go along with me. Okay, so we are keeping this to do item relation in the app state. Now we can simply come back here and let's start working on our functionality. So all of the function we're going to build is going to be a synchronous function. So let's call this async fan. So that's how we define function in Rust. We call it fan, not function. And you can call whatever name you want to give to your function. So I'll call this get to do. This is the function we're going to call to get all the to do of the user who will create in our program. And it's going to take no argument. So we'll say data is going to be like web data. Inside that we'll pass this app state, because we want the complete data. We don't want any specific data, or we don't want to pass anything in this particular function. We just want to return the data. So that's why we have taken these app states. Now that's how we have to make it synchronous, and we'll say impl imple, and we call this responder. And inside that we have to simply build the logic to return the entire data. So let's do that. Let to do's, and we'll have this data dot to do's list. We'll call this lock, and on that we can simply call this unwrap. So this is the simple method, and at the end, once we have the entire data, we have to simply send the response. So we'll take this HTTP respondent, we'll say okay, and we have to send the data in the JSON format. So we'll have this JSON, and in that we have to simply pass the data. So we already taken the data to do's. So we'll take this and star, and we'll give the name of the data which we want to send. Very simple. What we are doing, we are simply getting the data, calling it unwrap, and that's what we are simply returning in our function as a form of JSON, because that's the lightest form of data, which is very good when you are dealing with the front end and back end or transferring of the data. So that's the only thing we have to do to return the entire to do items which user will create in our backend. Got it? So this is the very first function. Now we have to write the second function for create. So we'll say async fan add to do. In that we're going to take a couple of parameters. So first we have to call the item. We'll call it web JSON, because the data is come in the form of JSON. We'll call this create to do item. That's the one we have taken above. and that's the reference we have to give. Then we have to give the data. We'll say web data, and we'll pass this app state because we have to keep that relation in the app states. Now we can simply call this one inbuild responder. Inside that we have to simply build the logic. So let's say let mute. Later the user will change, it will update. That's why I've taken this. It's not the constant one. So we'll call this to do. We'll take this data, to do, list, log, and unwrap. The same logic we have to follow here. Now we have to create a new item, and that's the new item we have to push. Got it? So this will return the entire data we have. So let's create a new item. So we'll take this let new to do, and we already have the data. So we'll say to do item. Inside that we have to simply fill out the data. So we'll have to fill the ID, which we are using this library for. Then we have to provide the title, item title clone. Then we have to provide the boolean state is going to be complete, and then we have to define the created time. So we're going to use the library called UTC, and we'll use the now function which is available. So it's going to give us the current time when the user is creating this to do. So that's the first one. You can see this red line, just simply ignore because I have the extension active. That's why I'm getting this one. And you can also see this gray highlight. It's just the auto typing. That's the code which is generating this, but you can simply ignore this. There is no code here. We have this, then we have this data. There is nothing in here. It's just the extension which creating this highlights. Now we can simply come back here and we have to simply push the data. So we have this, all the data, all the to-dos. We can call this push method, and we have to simply pass the new to-do which we have created just now. And then we're going to simply send the respond. So we'll say okay, and then we can give any message, but I want to send this to do the entire array. And that's the only thing we have to do here to add a new to do item. Very simple, not that complicated. You will get used to. The more you will write program in Rust, you will get used to. It's just there are a couple of changes and differences in the syntax or in the variables and the way we write, but you will get used to the more you will write and the more project you will build. So just build. Now we can come back to the next function. It's going to be an async function, and this will allow us to update the to do item. So it's going to be quite similar to the previous one. So we'll take this path, and the way we're going to update this data, because at the end we're going to send an ID of that to do, because every single to do will have an ID, and that ID we're going to send in our backend, and with the help of that ID we have to identify that which one we have to update. So that's the path we are providing. We'll say web, we'll say path, and then we'll take this, the library we have taken. Then we have to take the details. So we're going to take this create to do item. We can change this to updated because that's one we have to call, this one. So we got it. Now we can simply come back here, and here we have to simply provide the app state because it's going to make the changes in our state. Now we have to build this impl I, and we'll say responder, and that we have to build the logic. So first thing we have to get the to do, then we have to simply run a if statement to check which one we have to update. So we have to match the ID which we'll get in the path and the ID available in the to do. So let me do that. It's going to be a muted. We'll say to do, and we have to get the entire to do. So this is how we can get it, and we'll call it unwrap. So this will give us the entire to do which is available in our system, in our backend. Now we have to simply find. So we have to build an if statement. We have to check the comparison based on the ID. So we'll take this sum, and this method is really powerful, and then we have to simply pass the to do. It's just like a async function. So we'll take this to do's. This is the entire array. In that we have to get this irritator, and in that we have to take this mute and call the find method, and in that we have to simply find the to do. So this is how you can give 2 lines, and that you can pass this to do. Once you pass this, and now you have to do the comparison. So we'll take this, call this to do dot id equal to the path. Here we are building the connection. What we are doing, let me repeat one more time. Just ignore this one. This is the extension which I'm using. That's why it's giving this highlight, but there is no code here. So first we are getting the data, the entire to do we have in the backend, and we are calling this method data to do list lock unwrap, and it's going to give us the entire array right up here. Just ignore this portion, that's why it's in the gray. Once we have this data, then we are running this sum function, and we are simply filtering out that and trying to find out the to do, that one to do, and then we have to simply match with the path which we have available in the URL which we go to send into our backend. Got it? Let's code ahead. Now we can come back here. Once we done all of that, now we can come here and let's build the next if statement, because this function going to do two things. First thing is going to update our title, the to do message which we want to send in the backend, and the second one is going to also change the status complete or incomplete. So let's call this some title, because that's the first thing we have to deal with, and in that we'll take this item dot title. Inside that we can simply update that. So we'll say to do title equal to title, the clone one, the data we have got, and that's what we have to simply provide. Now we have to simply build another if statement, and this one is going to deal with the complete status. So it's exactly the same. We have to call this, and that we have to pass this complete, because that's one we have to update, and it's going to be called item dot completed. In that we can take this to do completed, and we'll say completed, the one will get it, and then we have to send the response back to the client. So we'll send it as a JSON format. In that I can simply call this to do the entire array. I want to send it back to the user after a successful update. Else we can simply throw an error. So we'll say not found, means the ID which user have provided is not matching with any one of the item we have. So we can say that something like in the body we'll say to do not found. Very simple logic, and I can see I'm getting this particular warning. Okay, we have to remove this extra. So sometimes this mistakes happen because I'm coming from JavaScript, so there is two equal, so sometimes I give extra equal sign in the code. So now it will work fine. So now this particular yellow will go, so it looks fine. So this is the update function we have. Now we can write the next function. So we can come back here, let's check one more time. So you can see all those libraries we have used, all the yellow lines are gone. The only one is left is app, HTTP server and cross, and these things we're going to use in our main function when we're going to execute and run our server. So these things we're going to use it, but all these things looks good, and you can see this title because we are not updating and utilizing any function. So you can see the function is also having this yellow line because we are not utilizing it. If you overrun it, you can see this is the message we'll get is never used, but we'll use that when we'll build the endpoint, the routers for our backend. So this looks good. This is the app state. Fine, there's no need to do anything. All of things are look good. Let's close all of that. Now we can simply come back here and let's build the next function. So it's going to be a delete to do. So we can come back here, we'll take the path, and that we'll get the ID. Then we have to take the data which is in the app state, and we have to simply come back here, and here we have this app state, and that's what we are taking. Then we can simply build this impl responder, follow the same logic. We have to simply get all the data, then we have to match it up, and we have to delete it. So let's do it very quickly. We'll say to do's, and we can get it very easily, data dot to do dash list lock unwrap. We got the entire array. Now we have to simply say if to do's dot iterate any, and in that we can simply pass this to do, and we can simply try to match the ID with the path ID. The ID is available in the path. Once we match it up, then we can simply remove that. So we'll take the to do retain. In that we can simply take this to do dot ID not equal to the path. Then we can simply send this okay, and in the value we can simply pass the entire to do. Else we can simply say no body is a to do found. Simply we are simply removing and sending the response back. So this is the entire function we have. Very simple function. If you understand one function, that how we are taking the data, how we are matching it up, how we are getting the data within the Rust contract and doing the comparison. So this will take very simple things we have here. So we are simply taking that particular to do, then matching the ID. If it's okay, then we have to simply remove that, and then we are sending the response. So that's the functionality. Now we have to build the main function which is going to be triggered when we run our backend server. In that we have to highlight and provide all the servers and a cross origin errors we have to handle. So come back here, we'll stick this Actix-web, the package, we'll call it main. It's going to be an async function, obviously. We'll say main, and then we can simply say stain io result, and it's in that we have to define. So first thing, we're going to take this app state, and then we can simply part our web, and that's going to take the data, because this will carry the data whenever any function or things will call. So we'll have the data. In that we're going to call this new, and in that we'll pass this app state. So that's how we are managing the apps, and that app state will have the entire information which we are simply accessing in our entire application. So that's the app state we have. Looks good. Now we can come here, and in that we have to build our to-do list. So we're going to take this library, and that we're going to simply call this new, and we'll pass this particular method called var new. Again, this might create confusion, but just code along with me. You will understand everything when we'll start actually connecting and making all the requests. So this is the setup we have to follow when we have to build our backend using in the Rust programming language. So these are the methods is available, and then we have to simply pass this, and I can simply come here. I can see something's wrong happen. I think I removed some of the brackets, so I got this one, and provide this bracket here, and I have to remove from here in the app state. Okay, it should be together. So this looks good. Remove this one, and this will fix the issue. Right now you can see we have no issue. Everything's look good. This is the state we have. Now we can simply come back here, and here we have to build our server. So we can come down here. We'll say HTTP server new, and in that we can say move, and it will have this cross origin. That's all the thing we have to define. So we have already imported the library, and now it's time to configure our cross origin library. So we'll say cross. So let's call it cross, and we have to use the library, and in that we have all the methods. So we have to call this default one. There are multiple methods are available, but we need the default one. In that we can simply provide all the methods. So we have this origin, then we have this method, then we have this, let's call header, then we have this age is going to be 360, is going to be a sec. So this is what we are providing in the cross origin header. Let's format it. So let's bring this down, and looks good. So now it's look good. So this is the entire setup for our cross. So whenever anybody will make a request to your backend, they will not face error like cross origin. It will work fine. So this is our server, and let's have a look one more time. So this is the notification. Okay, you can simply ignore this. Don't need to worry about it. Just continue ahead. So we have built our server. Now what I'm going to do is come back here, and we have to start our app. So we'll say new app data. In that we can simply pass the app state. I'm going to call this clone. On that we can simply call this wrap cross, and we have to build the routes, that in which route our function will be accessible. So now it's time to define the route. So first thing is going to be the path. So what is the path? So I'll say to do's, and in the routes we have to simply provide this web get. So what type of method is going to have, whether it's going to be get, update, get, put, delete, patch. It's just like in Node we have multiple method. That's the same method we have to provide. So we have this get method, and in which function we want to call. So we already have a function. We'll call this to, and we'll say get to do. So this particular function we want to call on this particular route, and this will return the entire to do. Got it? This is how we can build route. So this is get to do, and here we have this, and this is the function we are simply calling in this particular route. In the same way we can build multiple route. So I'm going to build in the nested way. So let's build on the same. So I'll provide this bracket. Now it's look good. Let's build the second one. Path is going to be the same, and In this route we have to simply update. So for getting all of the to-dos and updating will have the same route. So this will call web, and we'll say post method, and we can simply call the function we already have. We'll say add to-dos, and let's build the third route. So this will be for, now we have to build the third route. So it will have the query, so id will be available, and that id we're going to simply pass in the function so we can compare. And it's going to be for, let's call this one put, means we have to update. So we already have the update function, so we can simply call this update to do, and we can simply remove this one. We don't need this, remove this one, save it. And I'm getting this red warning that this particular function don't exist. So let me see, I have maybe misspelled my function name, and let's format this one properly so it will look little better. So let's bring all of this down, and here we have this one. Then we can simply bring this as well, and here is a problem we have, add to do. So what I can do is I can simply come back here in the and check the function. So like it's called to do's, no s. So I'll simply come down here, I will remove this s, and now it's fine. Now I'm going to simply copy this one because we're going to have the same route but different methods. All we have to do is to simply change this to delete, and it will delete the to do. So I'm going to simply copy that one and paste here. So this is the entire route we have for our application. Got it? Now we have to define our end port, that on which port we have to run our backend server. So that's very simple. We can come back here, we can say bind, in that we can define that port. So this is the default route I'm providing, but if you really want to deploy this backend server on internet, then make sure to provide your actual route here. So this is the default one, like 0.0.1, and we'll have 8080. And on that we have to call the method called, let's say, run await, and that's the only thing we have to do. So this is the entire backend code for our to do app. I hope you guys have learned about that, how you can use this library. Everything will make sense when we're going to interact with the backend server. So this looks pretty good. We are using all of this library, using this web server, cross origin, and id, and all of that. Then we have this to do item. Make sure to check your spelling and give the exact name and exact type we have defined. Here we have this create to do item. This is what we're going to take from the user. Let's close this one. Then we have this update one. Then we have this is also the update one. Now we can come back to the app state. So here we are managing all the states. Now we can come back to the get to do function. This will going to return the entire to do we have in our backend as a form of array. Then we have this add to do. We are getting the data from the user, create to do item, and that's all we are passing. So first we are getting that, then we are simply updating. Looks good. That's all we have here. Got it? Here we have the update one. So we'll get this data from the router, the ID, and based on that we can simply find the item, and we have to simply update it. First we have to update the title, because this function can do two things. It can update the title or it can change the status. So we have built the reusable model which can handle two requests. And here we have the delete, is exactly the same, just like the update one. We are simply removing that from an array, and here we are simply running our main function which will start our backend server with all of these details for the backend origin. And here we have the routers and the endpoints. That's all we have here. Looks good. This is the entire piece of backend code. Now we can start working in our front end. So this looks good. No error, no warning. We have everything's look good. Now we can simply come back to our pages, go back to the index, and here we have to build the entire code. You don't need to do anything in here in the app.js. All the code we're going to write here. So first thing, we have to import a couple of things from React, like use state and use effect. These are the two things we need. Now we can come here and let's import the icons. So I'll take this React icons md. In that I need the item md delete, then md edit, and will md confirmation number. So these are the three icons I'm using. Now we can come back here. Let's import our XCS package for making an API request to our backend. Now we can come back here and we can import, let's say, our format data package, and it's coming from date fns. Now we can come here and let's do a couple of internal import because we're going to use our checkbox component. But before we import that, let's work on the functionality. When we utilize, we can definitely go back and create our checkbox, and that's what we're going to import. Let's come here and we have to take a couple of state variable and local variable. So let's start with the variables first. So we'll take this use state. It's going to be the edit text and it will have empty data. Then we'll take the next one is going to be something like to do's and it's going to be an array. In that we're going to keep all the to do. Then we'll take another one. It will be our to do's copy because we are providing the filter option. So that's why we have to create a copy of our array, and then we have to do the mutation and remove and bring it back. So I'm taking this copy array. In that I can simply pass this to do. Then we can come back and let's take another one. Let's call this one to do input. So we'll get the data from the user from our input. Now we can come back there and take one more. Let's call this edit index, and this particular variable will keep the track of that which component we should open or which function we should call. So when the user will add a new to do, it will have the normal state, but when the user will try to update, we have to change that state, so it will call a different function. Everything will make sense. Just take this state. Then we'll take another one. This will be called search input and it's going to be an empty. Then we'll take another one. It's going to be, let's call this one search result. Let's bring it back. Let's make it capital R, this one as well, and we have to simply provide this as an array. And I'm getting some sort of warning right up here. This prettier is providing me, so I can see the array is happening here. Okay, I have this comma, so remove this comma, it will fix the issue. Let's bring it back. So we got this. Now come here and now we have to take couple of local state variables. So this is going to be for the data and we're going to use this for locally management. So we'll say state management, and I want to take this for first one is going to be the count, and by default I will say 0, and this count I'm going to use it whenever there is a new to do or whenever there is a changes in the state. So it will call the function, our backend function, and it will update the data without reloading the page. So that's why I'm taking this. It will make sense. Just follow along with me. So this is the one. Now we have to take the another one for the search. Then we have to take another one. Let's call this search item. So these are the three state management we have. In that we can simply pass the search. Looks good. So this is the states we have. Now we can come back here and let's start building the functionality. So let's call this use effect hook we have, because we have to get the entire data, all the to-dos whenever the page will reload. So we're going to simply take this use hook and we're going to code this particular function fetch to do, and I want to call this function every time there is a change in the count. So that's the one I can simply provide. You can have multiple variables in a form of array, but I'm going to go with the count only. And this is the function we have to build. So before we build the fetch to do function, let's build a small one which will allow us to check which component we have to open, whether to update or to add a new to do. So let's call this edit to do. It's going to take an index. Inside that, what we have to do is we have to simply check, let's say set to do import. In that we can simply pass the to-dos, the entire array, and from that we have to access the specific one. That's why we are providing this index, and we'll get the title. And then we're going to simply call this set id index and we'll set this one. So if the index is changed and it's something else, so it's going to open the update one. Otherwise it will go with the default one, means add new to do. Makes sense. Just wait. Follow along with me. Now this is the simple function we have. Now we have to work on the fetch to do. So let's take a variable const fetch to do's. It's going to be an async function. First thing, we have to take a try and catch, and we have to catch if anything goes wrong. So let's console log out the entire error. We got it. Now we can come back here. Let's create this response and let's make a request to our backend. So we'll use this await and we'll use this XCS package, and we have to call the get method because that's going to return the entire array of to do. And this is the endpoint in which we have to make the request. So http colon slash 127.001 and 8080 and to do's. Remember, this is the endpoint. So if I come back and take you back to the Rust program, you can see this is what we have. So if I go back to the endpoint, this is the endpoint we have built. So this is the local and this is the endpoint. This was a local, and here we have the to do's is the endpoint, and that's what we are simply calling here. Very simple. This will return the entire array of to do's, and that's what we have to simply set in our state variable. So we already have this state. We'll say set to do respond.data, and that will have the entire to do, and we can also set this to the copy, and we got the data. So this is the very first set of function we have for getting all the to do's. Now what we can do, we can simply copy this one, paste here, and now we have to work on our add to do. So let's change this to add to do, and this particular function will do two things. It will add a new to do, or it will also update based on the condition. So that's why we're going to take this if else statement here. So we'll come here, we'll take this if edit index is -1, then we have to allow the user to create a new to do. But if it's something else, then we have to call the update function. That's the simple logic. So we'll come back here. Let's say if it's -1, then we have to simply allow the user to create a new to do. We'll say add new to do, and we already have this endpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, copy this one, and paste here. This is what we got it, and we have to simply send the data back to our backend. Remember, we have to send two data, title and complete. So we can send that title, which is already available in the to do input. When the user will type, we're going to simply update this state, and we have to simply call this complete. So by default I will say false. Got it? Because if you look at here, we have this, we are getting the data, then we are simply updating. So only these two data we have to pass, but the ID and the timing will be created automatically with the library. Only these two data we have to pass. The name is very important. Make sure you have to give the exact name which you have provided in the backend. That's the name you have to give right up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simply we still need to update the data because we'll get the entire array. Now we can come back here, simply call set to do input to be empty string, and that's the one function for creating a new to do. Now we have to work on the else function, which is going to work around the updating of the to do. So in that we're going to take this copy, paste here, and we have to simply change this to update existing to do. In that we have to simply pass the ID of that specific to do which we want to update. So we can come back here, we'll take this call to do update, we'll get the entire to do, and we have to spread that. So we'll take this to do's, and from there we have to get the index of that particular one which we want to update. So this, and then we can simply update this title to do input. Got it? This is the simple approach we have. So what we are doing, we are simply spreading the entire array, then we are getting the particular one which we want to update, and we are simply passing the updated data. Now we have this to do update. Here we can simply pass in the URL. So we have to change the method to put means update. We have to make it this template literal. So we'll take this one, and we have to pass the ID as well. So we'll take this $, and that we can pass this to do update, and in that we have the entire details, entire data about the to do. So we have to get the ID. So we'll take this .id, and that's the only thing we have to do. In this way we can able to update the to do. That's good. Beautiful. I can simply copy that one, and that's what I have to simply replace here, because this time we have to send the title on. So that's what we have, and you can simply remove this one, and let's check the data, the response in the terminal. Now we can come back here. Let's take a variable called updated to do, and we'll have this data available in the response. We'll have to get this to do's, and once we have that one, then we can take this updated to do's. In that we can simply pass the edit index, and we'll get this response.data. We have to simply update that. At the end we have to simply set the entire data into our state variable, the new data, and we have to also make our input field empty. and we have to simply take this edit index to be -1 as a default, and we can simply increase our count. So it's going to recall our get function. So we'll say count, whatever the value of count, we have to increment 1, and it's going to simply call our fetch function. So that looks good. So this is the dynamic function we have for updating and creating a new one. Very simple. So simply close this one. Now we can come back here, and now we have to work on the next function called delete to do. It's going to be very simple. So we'll take this ID. Let's try and catch, console log out the error. And it will have the similar structure in that we have to simply pass the ID. So I can come back here, I can grab this portion and I can paste here. Actually not this one, because we have to pass the ID as well. So come back here and we have to get this one, copy this entire, the update one, and that's what we have to pass. We'll change this to delete, the method delete. So this will delete the item, and here we have to simply pass the ID. And actually we don't need to send any data, so remove this one. So this is good enough to delete our to do in our backend, and we have to simply get the in the response we'll get the updated one, and that's what we have to simply update. So we have to take this filter, we'll say to do, and we can take this to do dot item is not equal to the ID. We got the updated one, so we'll get this response, and that's what we have to simply set. So this is the delete function, very simple. Now we can come back here, copy the and replicate here, and we have to simply change this to toggle completed. So this one is going to simply update whether the status is completed of that particular to do or not. So we already built the entire logic in the backend. All we have to pass the index and it will do rest of the work. So first thing, we have to simply get the specific to do which we want to update, which is very easy. So we'll take this to do's, we have to spread it up, then we have to get that specific one, and then we have to simply update that completed to, and we're going to make it dynamic. So when the user will click to 1, it will true. If they click again, it's going to turn false. So we're going to go with a dynamic approach. So we'll say if it's not true, then make it true. If it's false, then make it false. And in that we can simply pass the ID index and call it complete. So this is the dynamic one. So user can simply toggle between complete and incomplete. So this looks good. We are done with that. We are done with almost every single functionalities. This one is update, which handles, and that looks good. This is what we have. Now we have to simply pass the ID. Here we got it, and we can simply remove this one, and we'll get this updated to do's. Now we have to simply spread that entire array. Then we can simply take this updated to do, we'll pass the index, and then we'll take the response and we'll give that. All we have to do is to simply set in our state variable the updated list of to do's. We can also increase the count to 1, so it's going to call our fetch function, and that's good. So this is the toggle function we have. Now we can come back here. Let's build the search to do, and this particular function is related to the front end. It's not related to the back end. So let's build this very quickly. So we already have all the to do. We'll take this result. In that we can simply call this filter method, and we want to do the filter based on the title. So we'll pass this. Let's call this to do, and we have to call this to do dot title, because based on that we have to do the filtration. We have to convert into a lower case, and then we have to simply search for a method called include. In that we can simply pass our search input. We have to convert into a lowercase, and in that way we can able to filter out, and at the end whatever filter data we'll get, we have to simply set to our search result. Very simple. Okay, it's just a front-end code where we can simply get the entire error, then we have to compare with the input text, and we have to update our component data with the to-dos. Now we can simply come back here, and we have to build one more function. Actually we have to build a couple of functions. So what we can do is, let's come here, let's take the form data, and this particular function is basically for the form. It's going to convert our timing, because remember we have a data available in our to-do list for the timing, so we have to handle that. and we already have the library. So we'll say this form data. In that, we're going to take this date string. Inside that, we have to take this try and catch, and we have to simply console logout if anything goes wrong, and we have to simply return it. So we'll take this calls data, new date. In that, we can simply pass this date string. Once we have that, now we have to simply pass the required data. So we can call it return. We'll use this it's a number, so that's the check we have to do. Then we can say date dot to get time. This is a simple method we have on the date, which we can call it to get the date. And we can say invalid date. Else we can use our library format. In that, we can define the data. So we'll say date, and the way we want to have a data. So we can pass multiple argument into this, like we have to pass year, then we can pass month, then we can pass day. We also want to take the time. So we have the method called h for hour, m for minute, and s for second. It's going to return the formatted data, which will be reflect in our front end. So this is a very simple function to format the data. Now we can simply come back here, and before we start working on other functionality like filtration, on search clear, or rendering the component, because we're going to have a dynamic component which is going to render every single to do. So let's work on the index page, the JSX first. So we can come back here and open up your terminal, and here you can see here we have the Rust. So what we can do, let's come back here and let's start our backend. You can see I have the extension, so it's automatically generating this file, but for time being I will just delete it. And right now I don't have anything. Let's start the backend server. So to start the backend server, we can use cargo. So simply type cd and get into this particular folder, because right now we are on the main directory, project starter file. We have to get into the Rust folder. From there we have to start our backend server. So we'll say rust cd rust. Here we are in the backend server. Now we have to start the backend. So we can use the cargo we have already in our project. So we'll type cargo run, and here it's downloading all the requirement and compiling our project. So just wait, this will take 20 seconds to 10 seconds, and it's going to generate all this target file and the cargo logs. Here it's compiling successfully. Once it will compile, it's going to start our application, and here our backend is running absolutely fine. You can see finished. We have no issue in our code. If you have any issue in the code, in the program, this will not compile and it will throw you an error. You can see all the packages we have used, everything is working fine. Our backend is running fine. Now we can simply come back here and we can start our front end. So type npm run dev. So it's going to start our front end on localhost 3000. So we can come back here in the packages and find this is the command we are running for development. So simply copy this one, come back here, open a new browser, paste and hit enter, and here you can see our backend is running fine, our front end is running fine, we are having no issue. Let's do the inspect element. And right now in the search console we don't have anything, because we have to initialize our fetch function we have here. So here we have the function called fetch to do. So bring it back, and it's going to give us the data, that how much data is available. So I'm going to simply reload the page. Okay, the data is not there. Okay, I have to console log out. So come back into the function, and I have to simply console log out the response. So I'll come here, console.log response, simply copy this response and paste here. In that you will have all of this, and here we got the response. So our backend is working absolutely fine. In that you can see we have multiple headers, requests, status, and the data. So that's all we have here. Right now there is no to do, that's why the data is an empty array. Reload the page and this is going to load. Wonderful. So our backend is running fine, we are getting this data, looks incredible. Now we can come back here and start working on the JSX, the HTML part. So we can come here, replace this one, come back here, and we can go back to the global CSS, and here we have already written all the CSS. So you don't need to do anything in the CSS, all we have to do is to apply those CSS, and the styling will also take automatically. So let's apply a class called, let's say, main body. Inside that we're going to take a div, it will have a class called to do app. Inside that we'll take a div, it will have a class called input section. Inside that we'll take this first input, because altogether we're going to have 2 button and 2 inputs. So this will be text. Let's assign a ID, and this will be called to do input. We'll have a placeholder, and we can call like add items, and we'll have a value. So the value is going to be the, let's call it to do input, and we'll have a on change function which allow us to update the data in our state. So we'll take the e.target and we'll say set to do input, and we'll say e.target.value. So this will update the data in our state. So this is the first input we have. Now we can come here and take a button. It will have a on click function. So on the on click function we have to simply call this particular function. So we'll call this add, and remember this function is dynamic. It's going to update also, it's going to create also. So we can come back here and we can also have a class called add, and inside the button we're going to simply, and here we have to display our dynamic text. So we have already this edit index. So if edit index is equal to -1, then we have to display the text to add, to do add, else we can call it update if the ID index is different. So this is the dynamic text we have. Now we can simply come back here, we can take this input, copy and paste here, and this one is for the search. So we don't need this, actually take it, we'll say search input, and here we have to change this to search, and we have to change this to search item, and this will be also called set search item, and this will update that. So simply copy the button, and that's what we have to call here. So here we're going to simply do the changes. So I'm going to simply remove this function. Later we're going to add this function. Let's give this empty bracket, so means there is nothing. And in the text I'm not going to have this class, remove that one. And in the simple search we'll call it search. This is the button. So if you come back here in the browser, you can see this looks incredible. So the stylings are automatically applied, and we got this 2 input field, one add item and the other one is search. Looks good. Now we can work on the body component. We can make a split screen so we can see what exactly we are working on. So this is how our project is looking on the front end, and here we have this one. Now we have to work on the body. So come back here, let's call this body, and I'm going to take a div. It will have a class, and let's call this one to do's. Inside that we'll take this UL, and in this we're going to simply render our dynamic components. So it will have a class. Let's call this one to do list, and we'll save it. Inside that we're going to render our component. So right now we haven't built that render component function, but we have to build. So the moment you will set, you can see we got the body, and let's build a component. If there is no to do, so we have to display something. So we can simply display this image. So we'll take a dynamic block, we'll say to do's length, if it's equal to 0 means there is no to do list, then we have to simply display this image and text. So we'll take a div. Inside that we can take this image, and I have this image in my public folder. So if I come back in the public, you can see this is the image I have taken. Simply copy the name and .jpg. Here we got it. Let's apply the class. So we'll say the class is going to be the face. So it will have a small and little fades. We can also display the text. So we can come back here and take h1, and we'll have a class called, let's say, no not found. We'll say not found. Got that test. So this is our dynamic component which will reflect when there is no array. So our front end is almost ready. All we have to do is to work on the dynamic component. So it's going to be a very small one. So what we can do is we can simply come up. So this is the entire JSX which we have to write. So that's how it's look. Let's make on the inspect element to see things are working fine. Reload the page, come back here. So this is good. Now our server is running fine. Now let's try to create one. It should be work. Okay, it's not working. So there is some problem we have in the add function. It's not working. So we have to see. Let's stop the backend server. And before we fix the bug, let's write down all the other function we have. After that, we're going to do the robust testing in our application. So let's quickly build out the function. So come back here. Let's create a rendering function. This is going to render our component. So we'll say render to do's. It's going to take the to do, and the entire array it will receive. Then we have to call this return, and we have to return the entire component. So we'll take this to do map, and we have to make it instant return. Here we have to build the HTML part. So we'll take a list. Let's close that one. It will have a key. So in the key we're going to provide the index. It will have a class. Let's call this li. Inside that we have to take this label, and it's gonna have a class called form check label. Down below we can come here and we can take a span. It will have a class called to do text. In that we can display the text, means the user title, the to do message he published, and the date. So we can take this dynamic block and we'll say to do dot title. We have the data, and then we can also display the time. So we already built a dynamic function like format date. In that we have to simply pass the time. So we already have this created dash at, and that the time is available. We are passing into the function, and it's going to return the readable date and time. So this is the one we have. Now we have to display the icon, one for delete and one for update. So simply do one thing. We can simply come here. We'll take a span. Let's have a class called span button. It will have an on click function, and we already built the function called delete to do. In that we can pass the ID, because that's what we are receiving into this function. And inside this function we can take this icon tag, and we'll have a class called fa solid fa trash, means the delete one, and we have already taken the icon from React icon, so we can simply import that md delete. So this is the first time. Simply copy and paste here, and this one is going to be the edit one. So simply click this to edit, and here we have to change the function name to edit index. Got it? And this will be the index. So that's what we have to pass. Looks good. And that's our render function. In this function we have to add one more, the checkbox, which we haven't built yet, but we're going to add that. Looks good. Now we can come back here and let's work on the filter functionality. Let's write it down all the function quickly. We'll call it filter. It will take call on handle search. It's going to receive the value, means the text. Then inside that we're going to take this cons filter to do. We'll take the entire array. We'll call this filter methods, and we have to simply compare. So we'll take this. Let's call this title, and it will say title dot to lowercase, and we have to call this include function. In that we have to simply pass this value dot to lowercase, and this will going to return the filtered array. And now we have to build this if statement. So we'll say if filter to do length is equal to 0, then we have to call this set to do to do's copy. Else we can say set to do's to filter to do, means the length is 0, then we have to take the same to do's list which we have in the copy array, and that's what we have to update. But if there is something, there is a length, then we have to simply pass the filter length. That's the on handle. Now we have to work on the on search, on clear to search. And it's going to be a very simple one. We'll say if to do's dot length and copy dot length, means there is length exists, then we have to simply set this set to do's to do's copy. This is the simple one. This is the to one, and now we have to simply call this particular function. So we can take this hook, use hook, and in that we have to simply call the function based on the condition. So we want to call this function based on the search. Whenever the user type the text in the input field, on the base of that we have to simply call this. So we can come here, we'll say if search is there, means there is a text in the search, then we have to simply call this on handle search function. Else we have to call this on clear function. And now we have to build a timeout, because we have to simply define when we have to call. So simply copy and paste here and remove this and change this to search item, and here we have to build this set timeout. So we'll say timer set timeout, and it's going to take a callback function. We'll say set search, and then we can simply pass the search item, and we'll give this 1 second. So when the user will type, after 1 second its function going to call and it's going to check. So that's one we have. Now we have to simply work on the clear timeout. So we'll say clear timeout, and that we can simply pass the function name, and that's the simple one we have. It's work absolutely fine. So that's the only thing, that's the all function we have built in our application. Now let's try to test this out. So we have built that. Now we can simply copy this render component, and that's what we can simply pass here. So we'll call the component and we can pass the entire array. So we'll take this to do's, then it's going to simply render. Got it? Looks wonderful. Now we can test this out. So first thing, we have to simply reload the page, and here we are getting nothing. Let's type and call add, nothing is happening, means we have some problem in our add to do function. So let's come back here. You can see it's still the data is empty. Maybe the method is causing the issue. So I can come back here and I can see, and I found couple of changes we have to make. So first changes we have to make in the date format. So by mistake I have made a spelling mistake. It's date, not DATE. So make sure to make it a data. So this is the change you have to do here, and the other changes we have to do in the add to do function. So we have to make the changes in the method name. So we have to call post, not get, and this will fix the issue. This is the part of development. When you will code, this will happen. So now we can simply start our backend server, because earlier we stopped it. So let's clear it up. Let's stop this one. Let's come back here, and I'm going to simply remove this one, select this and delete, and let's start our cargo. Here our backend is running fine, here is front end is running fine. Just wait, give few minutes. Once it will upload it successfully, we'll have our backend up and running and the front end up and running. So looks good, beautiful. Now you can come back here, and now we can create our first to do. So simply reload the page. Right now there is no data available, but we can get it. So click on this, add, and boom, here you can see our front end component is also updated. How quickly we got the data. You can see we got this first data. Here we have the array, in that we have this complete, created at, and the ID and the title, and that's all reflecting here. You can add as many as you want. Click on add, and this will update the data. So this is for adding. Now if I want to click on update, okay, we have a problem in our edit index. So this is the problem we have in the update. So this is the one fix we have to do. So close this one, come back here, and if I click on delete, so delete work absolutely fine. So there is no problem in the delete. You can add and you can delete very easily. So these two functions is working fine, but we have a problem in our update function. So that's the one we have to fix. Let's come back here, and here we have this render. So I see the problem, it's edit index, but this is what we have to call. We have built this edit to do. So copy that one, and that's the function we have to call here. So in this way it will open our update component, because that's what we are highlighting. So click here, and here you can see it's given the data in our input field, and now we can simply pass the data, and we can simply click on update. Okay, we do have problem in update function as well. So somehow the update is not happening. So we'll see into that. Just wait. Let's try to change it. Click on update. Okay, the update is not working, but the component is working. It's switching back to update. So before we start working on the update, let's add the toggle component. So this is the one we have. This is the one component we have, and let's come back to the component. Here we have the icon. Here we have the checkbox. So let's build this one particular component very quickly. So first thing, we have to import that component, so we can test this particular functionality. So we got the component, now we can simply copy. Got it. Now we have to simply import the icon, which is coming from the SVG folder. So we'll say what is called icon, and it's coming from the same directory from SVG folder. Copy here and paste here, and simply provide all of this details. So change this to label. So what we are doing, We have this label, it has a class called container, then we have the input field, and in that we are simply providing all of that like check, type check, and on change event we are calling this toggle function. So let's import that. So we'll say toggle import index, and we have to get the entire to do data of that selected to do, and that's the only thing we have to do. Now we can already imported that, now we have to simply call the function. So come back here, and here we have to call it right above the label, and in that we have to simply send the props. So let's send the props. So we're going to simply take this toggle complete function, let's send that. Then we have to send the index, and we have to send the to do, so the entire to do data. So we'll say to do, and that's it. So these are the props we have to send, and now you can see we have this our checkbox. So if you click on that, reload the page. If you click on that, okay, that's weird, it's deleting instead of completing check. So again, that's the problem we have in the checkbox. So that's happened, that's a part of development. We have to debug that what exactly went wrong in our this function. So we can come back here, and I know what is the problem. We are actually calling the wrong method. So open this one, and you can see, as I told you, that we have the wrong method. So instead of delete, we have to call this put, means we want to update it, and the rest to be fine. So you can come back here, and you can see check. Okay, it's not happening. You can delete it, but edit is not also working. You can simply check is not happening. So come back here, and here we have to make the changes. So this is what we have, the updated to do. Here we have the ID, so simply copy that one. That's what we are providing here, and we have to pass the data as well, because we are not passing any data. Then how our function in the backend will know that what exactly we have to update? So we have to pass that updated to do, and that's what we are passing. So this is how you have to pass it, and this will work fine. Now this will return the data, and that's what we are setting in our state variable, and it will update in our component. So save it, it will work fine. So make sure to provide it, reload the page, click here, and here it go, check, uncheck, check, reload the page. You can see it's checked. Checked means completed tasks, not completed tasks. So delete is working, check is working, add is working. The only problem we are having in the update, that's not working. That's what we have to fix. So we can come back here. So we have to come back here in the add to do function, and this one is for the creating, but here we have the update. So I made the changes. So all you have to do is to simply pass the data in this form. Earlier the data was in this form, that's why it was not getting and updating our data to the backend server. But this is not how you have to pass. You have to simply pass as a normal data. So simply remove that one and paste here, and it will help you to update the data. Now let's move to the other changes. Let's do a fixing in the search bar. I have noticed the problem in the search bar as well. So what I will do is I can simply come here, and I can try to search, and you can see I'm getting this undefined error. We have to provide this data. So we can come back here, and what we have to do is, here we have to pass the search item, that what the user is searching. If we are not provided, then obviously we get the error related to the undefined. So we'll say, so once you do that, reload the page, you will see it's work fine. You can search it, you can do that very easily. Everything's working fine here. You can delete it, you can add it, you can add one more, you can check. Everything's looking good. Let's do the final testing. Let's add couple of to-dos very quickly. Here we are adding all the to-do item in our applications. It's updating very quickly in our component. You can click on this edit, and you can able to edit that. You can click on that edit, and you can edit that, and it's happening. Complete tasks, you can filter. Wonderful. So every single thing is working absolutely fine. We have built this amazing project. I hope you guys have understood the architecture we have implemented. How powerful application is this? So simply let's stop the application and stop this one. Let me delete that, so and show you that when you will get the final source code, or when you will have this particular code, how you can execute that. So delete all of the files. Now we have to simply remove this one as well. I don't want this, because this is created by the extension and the files. Now this is the fresh code. First we have to get into the Rust folder, cargo run, Then it will generate this folder. Then we have to execute our backend. Just wait, it will take a few seconds. Then we can start our front end. Okay, my bad, we have to install the packages. Type npm I. It will install all the packages. Our backend is running absolutely fine. And here we started our front end. We got all of this. Come back here, reload the page, and let's test this out. So we can add that, check, add more. You can delete. Wonderful. So hope you guys have understood. Like, we have built this particular code for managing our backend. So this is a wonderful project which you can include in your portfolio to increase your understanding about the Rust programming language. So that looks wonderful. You can come back to the blockchain coder. Here you will find all the resources which you need to develop this project. That's all is provided. So I would suggest you to come back to the source code section. Here you will find all the project we have built on the channel. You can simply do the recent project, and there you will find all the assets. So make sure to build at least 5 projects. In that way you will have your understanding about the blockchain, that how you can build project for Solana, how you can build project for the Solidity, Ethereum. That all will clear your doubts. So click here, get now, and click on the starter file, and simply download the starter file and start coding the project. In this, I have given you all the instruction which you have to follow to create this project. So come back here, and you can go back to the blockchain coder, and this is the course I have released. In that you will master every single thing which you have to know about the front end, about the smart contract, and we're going to build one of the complex and ready to launch project in this entire course. It's a 40-hour long course, so make sure to check this out. You can watch the video. Here you will find all the modules which we have discussed extensively. You will master complete Solidity programming language. You will master how to do the advanced setup in a Web3 project. That's all you will find. Here we have the entire project and its architecture, and what are the contracts we're going to build, because this particular project have multiple contracts. Close to 5 different business models we are following. And here you will learn about the recent and most demandable technology, HTML, CSS, React, Tailwind, Hard Hat. You will master all of that. So this is really powerful. Again, I would encourage you to come here, download the starter file, and start following the project. So we have finally completed the entire project. If you have any question, any doubt, do let me know in the comment section. I'll definitely try to help you in that. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.